So if you're new tonight, welcome. What I like to do each week is really start off with some quiet time. Then we'll maybe have a bit of a chat. And as we go through the broadcast tonight, feel free to post any questions through the Facebook Heart Sangha page. As I say, each week this live event is going to be recorded, so most of you or some of you may be watching this on my YouTube channel after the event has taken place. So if you are, hello. So this is the fourth week of our Hangouts. And really, as I've said before, I created this as a way of making meditation classes really accessible to everyone. Everyone has such busy lives these days. So even just kind of going out for the evening to do some meditation it can be quite challenging. And so, of course, a few of you may be moms and dads, and so you can't get out to do any sessions or attend any groups. So with this advent of technology, the mountain has come to Muhammad, or the meditation group has come to your own home now. So just while I wait for a few of you to be able to start to see this broadcast, I'd like you just kind of sit comfortably to begin with. Feel at peace with yourself. I don't ever have a plan about what I'm going to say, and that means that we might just be sat here for 45 minutes, so go either way. Okay, so to begin with, what I'd like you to do, if you are using this as a meditation session, or sat in your lounge listening it to you on your phone or on your computer, just take some time to be still with yourself. Really, I watched a documentary. It's really worth watching. I think it's called Amongst White Clouds, and it's on YouTube. And the documentary is about an American guy, and he's probably in his 20s, a filmmaker. And he has a Zen master that lives up in the mountains. I think they call it Chan Buddhism as opposed to Zen in China. But he has this Zen master anyway. And he goes and spends time with him up in the mountains and films the various hermits. But one of the monasteries up there towards the end of the film, he meets a Zen master, and this guy's in his 90s. And he has this young novice with him who's been living with him for about 6 or 7 years. And the interviewer, I guess like we all do at Part of the Path, he wants to know the great secret meditation technique he's been taught. How is he going to reach enlightenment? How is he going to wake up? What's this ancient master told him? So they ask him, what have you been taught? What's the meditation technique this old master in his 90s has given you? And he said, he's never given me a technique as such in meditation. He just tells me to sit down and watch my mind. And he said, that's enough. Now, of course, that doesn't dismiss all the other meditation techniques. It doesn't dismiss, if you want to do mantra work or kundalini or pranayama or whatever your bag is. And of course, these guys live up in the mountains of China without much, you would imagine, much distraction, no television. So it's probably quite easy to spend a few hours a day just sitting and watching the mind. But it's a very simple and beautiful technique. Sometimes when I do this in the morning, I call it clearing out my altar. So, if you like, you go into the temple of your own consciousness in the morning, and you clean it out of all the debris that's left from sleep. You know, we tend to wake up, a lot of us, not necessarily with a calm mind sometimes, but sometimes the mind can be a bit fluctuating after we've slept. So quite often all I'll do is sit in this exact place, and I'll just kind of look out the window, and maybe if I'm up early enough, maybe watch the sun rising or watch the morning breeze blowing through the trees that I can see. And I just sit, I just watch my mind. And I find that when I watch my mind for a while, everything has a tendency to become still. The calmness, it just naturally starts to happen. And it seems that what you would call the Buddha nature, or our natural state of being, our soul, the light, whatever you want to call it, in a way that doesn't need to be figured out as such. We don't need to figure out if we have a self, a no self, a soul, no soul. We don't need to figure that out as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes it's just enough to watch what we could call the problem. Because when we watch the problem, we could call this our thought processes, we could call it our mind, we could call it the internal drama that we all have happening within us. Watching that sometimes is enough. And if you watch it for long enough, you may just get those glimpses that I'm watching this drama within myself. And so naturally there's this I, this awareness or consciousness that's watching the drama. And so naturally there's an understanding that I can't be the drama, or I'm not totally the drama. There's this other element called awareness or consciousness. My teacher in India, he said, so few people ask the question, who am I? He said, I'm tired, I'm happy, I'm sad, I feel lonely, I feel connected, I feel high, I feel low. But we don't really stop and figure out, what is this I that's experiencing all those different things? So in relationship to what I'm talking about, just by watching, as the Zen master said, just by watching the mind, we can start to become free of it. Because now what was unconscious, meaning these compulsions we have in ourselves that are in control of how we feel sometimes, the compulsions that unconsciously push us in one direction, how we're going to act, what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. So those compulsions are brought into the light of awareness. So now, because we are aware that they're happening, it may even bring a choice in. Do I want to judge? Do I want to feel anger? Do I want to feel separate? Do I want to feel lost? So when we start to bring that quality of awareness, just that starts to free us from the problem. Free us from the problem. The problem being our unconscious nature, our unconscious mind. So even now, just kind of take a moment just to breathe for a while, just to relax. You know, you may have been listening to this, understandably, to try and grasp something or learn something. But there can be such a great value in unlearning, letting go. You could call that surrendering. Surrendering the grasping, the looking for. And for a while you may just arrive where you already are. And in that place there's rarely a problem. There's rarely stress or fear or uncertainty. But as soon as the mind starts again, all those things, they seem to start to come back. So let's just sit for a little while now. Maybe just feel your breath or be present to life. And kind of check in with yourself. How do you feel? What emotions do you have within yourself? What sensations, what feelings? And can you be at peace with them? Instead of trying to reject anything or pushing anything away, can you be at peace with how you feel right now, for example? If in your life you're facing uncertainty at the moment, can you be okay with that? If you feel fearful and disconnected, can you make your peace with that? Can you allow this moment to be exactly as it is, without wanting it to be another way, within your contextual experience? Can you experience that natural way of things? That natural way of things, it allows the fruit and the leaves to appear on the trees, and then for the leaves to turn brown and wither and fall to the floor. And it doesn't have a preference. So in meditation, you're invited to allow for a little while, if you wish to, to allow life to be life, this moment to be as it is in this moment, and to examine if I push against this moment, if I demand it to be something else, does that bring me peace or does it bring me suffering? What if just in this moment I allow life to be life? To allow, using the nature as a lesson, can I allow autumn to come for all the, maybe the light, the presence, or the money, or the popularity? Can I allow that to become brown like the leaves and wither and even die and go? Can I be okay with an internal winter where there just seems to maybe no energy, a sense of lostness? And then can I welcome my own spring, my own summer? Can I allow these cycles to take place peacefully, calmly? And this is connecting with what we were talking about, I think last week, where we quoted the Dhammapada, the line in the Dhammapada which says, can you watch impermanence really through the eyes of wisdom? And then if you can, even the act of watching that impermanence through the eyes of wisdom or stillness, that style of observing can set us free of it. Because I think that, as Lao Tzu says, we no longer really hold on to anything. We don't hold on to happiness, reject sadness. We kind of get to know the cycles, the coming and the going. Just this afternoon, as far as this hangout goes, there was so much insights. It's like you're plugged into the wisdom line. And now all I have in my mind is a stillness, a calm again. And then a part of me thinks, wow, I love so much to talk about, so much to say. But then there's this incredible peace in not needing that. In just being able to be present to the moment. To let insight, wisdom, even come and go. Knowing and unknowing. To move out, kind of in and out of each other. There's incredible peace in that. It's kind of like disconnecting from the matrix of illusion, the matrix of duality. Where we can just be with life. So let me see if any of you have any questions to ask so far. Brilliant. So let's just sit for a while then. Let's do some meditation. So allow your thoughts just to come and go. Not holding on to anything. And try and exist completely in this moment, eternal moment. Okay, so someone has sent me a question. So the question is centered around the change in friendships. Someone's said that they've had a friend in their life, and I suppose you could say they've maybe grown apart. It's very strange that we have certain friendships. And it also seems very true that if you enter any type of healing path, call it a relationship, a friendship, they quite often change, quite a lot of them. Eric Berne, the father of transactional analysis, this type of therapy called TA, he called this life scripts, and he said that, quite wisely, he said that we're all kind of reading off these life scripts called the unconscious mind. It's really our conditioning in life. And they're fine, we find the characters to play the roles in the play that we're in. and we all play out the roles to each other, you know. So you do this, I'll respond in this way, and then I'll respond in that way. And so we have these matrix of friendships and relationships. And then some of them are, reason, season, and lifetime. That's very, very common. Different types of friendships. Some are for a reason, some are for a season, some are for lifetime. So Raikburn noticed that everything's okay if, for example, the thing that he talks about is if, for example, if the play's Macbeth, everyone's reading the lines to Macbeth and it's going really well, no problem there. And likening this to a friendship. But then he says, suddenly if someone picks up a script and starts reading A Midsummer's Night's Dream, as in they change their life script, suddenly they have different beliefs. So suddenly they have different desires from life, different needs. And even as we heal, we might have the needs of a friendship might change. Maybe some of them were dependent. Maybe some of them were like supportive of a belief structure or system. And suddenly the belief structures change, or suddenly the outlook change. Suddenly the priorities in life change. And so it's like you've picked up a different script, or if you have a friend that is healing, then they may have picked up a different script. And so then Eric Berne says, which seems to be true in my understanding, Eric Berne says, generally one of two things happens as I remember it. He says either the other actors in your play, your life, they think, I don't want to be around this guy. This is confusing. I'm saying this. They're meant to say this. I'm acting this way. They're meant to act this way. They're meant to be there and they're there. So Eric Berne says, some of those friends, you're in different places. You're now in different plays, and the scripts that you have, the moves, the beliefs, the outlooks, all those things are so different that they just can't. It creates chaos. And so then we have this idea, but I'm meant to love everyone. The spiritual path is about loving everyone. But then sometimes it's the kind of cheesy saying that if you love someone, set them free. But this is very true in this instant. So sometimes to really love someone, you have to set them free. As in, okay, if we try and force this friendship, that's not love anymore. That's not connection. That's not happiness. It's uncomfortable. But yet, if I let that friendship be different in some way, be non-existent in some way, then I remain loving towards that person, even though they're not in my life, even though they're not close to me, even though I may never see them again. But that retains that sense of lovingness. Whereas if I try and force the friendship or the relationship and we're in totally different places, that can lead to resentment, which isn't love. So we think, well, maybe holding this all together is an act of love, but actually it might be completely the opposite. Just allowing it to be what it is can be a great act of love. So yeah, that's one aspect of it. And so that is very, very common. I guess probably even in people who aren't in healing paths, people might have different motivations in life, through life. They might have different outlooks, all of those things, and they tend to take people in different directions. So, even you see it when people have a family maybe, or start raising children, the priorities change, and somehow the friendship that was built around not having children, that might change with some people. It may not with others. So yeah, it's very, very natural for people to come and go, especially on the long term. I mean, yeah, so it's been, yeah, I've had a lot of that on my path, a lot of that on my path. But then for me, this path is about love. It really is about love. So then, as I've said, sometimes the greatest form of love is just allowing things to be exactly as they are. If they're working in the way that they used to, that's how it is. If they're not working in the way that they used to, that's how it is. And what you'll actually probably find as well is that if you are on this path of spirituality, meditation, that life molds itself around that. So the life experiences that you have as you walk along the path can be quite varied sometimes. Like jobs change, living situation changes as you grow and adapt and almost maybe attract or look for different situations. So yeah. So yeah, the question was, have I had this along my path? And yeah, quite a lot. And I used to try and hold on to relationships and friendships. I used to try and hold on to them, and often that holding on to them, it created more of a problem than just allowing them to be what they were. Yeah. Oh, no problem. I hope that was handy. It can be very painful, especially with like a long-term friendship or something like that. And sometimes it can still leave a bit of pain inside of the heart and the emotional body when you've had that, had a really good friendship, because you kind of miss how you used to feel that type of connection. And sometimes we end up just chasing it. We're chasing that old hit that we used to get. And yeah, that can create more problems as well. Yeah. So this is in the spiritual path. If we brought this into the meditative path, what we would call this is living in surrender. And a living surrender, we could call it letting go. Different paths have different names for it. But it means it almost living in this state of allowing life to be life. It's not necessarily passive, because within that we're allowing ourselves to be ourselves as well. You're allowing yourself to be yourself, imperfect, perfect, happy, sad. So there's that level of self-love and self-acceptance. And so again, it ties in, I guess, what we were saying right at the beginning of the session, which seems to be the natural theme for today, of these interesting cycles that could include some friendships, You know, some friendships that they appear, they may be intense for a while, and then maybe they fade, and then maybe they enter a cycle again of becoming really great and intense for a while. It's all quite a mystery, really. But real freedom, there's a line in the Bhagavad Gita, again, I haven't got a great memory for exact quotations, but it talks about the sage or the enlightened being, someone who knows the self. And it says that they look on mud and gold exactly the same, on success and failure exactly the same, on friend and foe exactly the same. So it's this, I suppose you could also say, on, you know, the arrival of a relationship or a friend and the departure of a relationship of a friend, they have this loving awareness that allows life to play out its cycles. But I think the thing is that they don't, or you wouldn't, the aim is not to really lose connection with that deep sense of self, which we could call loving awareness. We could call that stillness of the soul that we spoke about on the first week. So we're not really losing connection with that deepest aspect of ourselves. And it's sometimes I describe it on some of the posts, the way I describe it is, it's almost if you hold your hand out, a butterfly may come and land on it for a while, and then it might go again. But to the enlightened self, the soulfulness, the coming, the staying, and the going are equally as welcome. It's just part of the flow of it all. So that what we would be calling the meditative awareness. Now that doesn't mean that we're completely numb like some kind of spiritual robot. It doesn't mean that we don't feel unhappy, you know, because we're included in that allowing as well. So we're allowed to be fragile and human and high and low and wise and unwise, and we're allowed to be all of those things by that awareness. All of those things, they come and they go too. But then the depth of spirituality is trying to understand in all that coming and going, friendships, health, youth, life, in all the coming and going, where's the permanence? Because it's sometimes described in Advaita philosophy, you know, examine what comes and goes, but know what stays. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is describing it as, you know, in the battle that's taking place, he said, there's never been a time that all these soldiers on the battlefield, including you and I, there's never been a time that we didn't exist. Meaning this body even appears for a while. It appears as a baby, then it becomes a teenager. And then as I'm entering my 40s, it's fascinating because I'm starting to see a few grey hairs, and it's, the aging process is quite beautiful from a point of awareness, because it becomes more and more apparent if we do our practice. As far as I can see, I'm not this body, but somehow I'm experiencing it. I'm not that I'm separate from it. I'm somehow interlinked and experiencing it fully. But at the same time, I'm something else that watches in the mirror as this body gets wrinkles and grey hair, and I'm something else. Now, Buddha described, in the Buddhist path, Buddha described that if you can understand what that is, he said that's the end of suffering. He said that's the end of suffering. Knowing that. Knowing that. So please feel free. If you have any more questions, anything else you would like me to talk about, please post away. As ever, the cat is behaving herself tonight. So she's more settled, look. She's here meditating with me. It's funny when I think there was a point in my own spiritual practice where I was doing everything right. I was getting up early in the morning, doing my yoga, doing meditation, doing this, that, and the other. And I was quite unhappy and quite stressed. And I remember one morning, I was doing my yoga at the last house I was living in. And I was pushing and forcing my way into some posture or another, trying to get more flexible, trying to get somewhere, trying to be good at yoga, whatever that was. And I just looked over at her. And she just woke up. She did a couple of stretches, walked into the garden and just sat, stared at the sky. And it was like, wow, that's all it needs to be. And so I've learned so much from these two cats. Eckhart Tolle was right when he said that he's lived with many Zen masters and all of them have been cats. These cats just are. If they're tired, they sleep. If they're hungry, they ask for food or they eat. They like to sit in the garden, very still. They look at the sky. They're incredible teachers. They're some of the best spiritual teachers I've had. So at peace. They just are. Okay, so we have another question, I think. Let's have a look. This is a great question. Okay, so the big one, really, the big one. So from, hi Graeme, how do you best deal with worry? I often worry about what ifs. What if this happened? What if that happened? Which obviously affects my mood. In particular, particularly happens that I worry about people close to me and not being able to protect them, etc. Okay, so let's address that. So we have at least a good another 5 minutes. So how protecting people close to me. In a way, the devotional path is very beautiful for that. Because there's a belief that there is this great consciousness that takes care of everything. My teacher in India, for me, was that consciousness, pure consciousness, divine consciousness. And people used to say to him, I'm worried about my children, about this, that, and the other. And he used to look at them, say, not your children, my children. Obviously not speaking as a human being. And so that's how I deal with that. In a way, we're all looked after. There's a presence that's with us all of the time. And that presence makes a better job of looking after anyone than I do. So if I'm worried, you know, I might consciously have to say to myself, okay, you look after them, you take care of them. That's your child, you know, you're like the universal self. So that's how I feel that I don't need to protect anyone, you know. And sometimes I get asked if I can do healings and various things, you know, which I used to do a bit of Reiki and stuff, which I don't really tend to do anymore. But then the way I would work with that is I would say, okay, your will be done, you know. It's not a blasé thing, it's a genuine handing over to that higher frequency of love, awareness, or consciousness. So in the first part, so how to deal about worrying about people, I don't necessarily worry about people. All I say maybe is a prayer or an affirmation in my head, okay, I give them into your hands, or, you know, I trust that you can look after them. So that's one way. So the what ifs, okay. What ifs are two parts of a problem. What if we could go back to the original point, which is I think we spoke about it last week. The big one is I came to realize that worrying doesn't change anything. And so that I started to associate pain and suffering to thinking I was in control and that I could mess up the future, and if there was something I didn't do or did do that could alter the effects of the future, and that, you know, all that kind of stuff. So life was very kind to me. It gave me no end of problems, big problems, one after another, after another, after another, till I had to get to the point that I surrendered. I just let go. Okay, this is too much, beyond me. So it brought me to the place of surrender. So I don't deal with the what ifs because, you know, to use my language, people can use their own Buddha, God, whatever, but I believe there's this divine consciousness that's overlooking everything, including me. And I have my own personal experience. That's not like a blasé, made up kind of thing. I see it in effect. So I don't have to worry about my life because that is completely in control of it. So through that, the what if is I give that to God, to the universe, to the light, to the Buddha nature. I give that I have no interest in how it's going to turn out. I just surrender that. So I don't really have what ifs anymore. And because I don't have them, I don't have all the heartache and the misery that goes from worrying about the what ifs. So in the interim though, so how do you deal with it? Just by realizing it's only the mind that's unclear, fearful, uncertain. So come back to the mantra. Consciously surrender. Okay, I surrender this. I let this go. Not my problem. I give it back. You know, those are the ways of working with it. Actually, that's all I do. Surrender, remember, love. That's my whole path. Surrender outcomes, surrender the what ifs to that divine presence. Come back to the moment where there's no future. There's just this moment, the mantra, the remembrance of my teacher is my practice. So I'm in that place where I'm occupying my mind completely with that devotional practice. And the past but the future all belongs to that divine presence. You know, that's how I deal with it. Yeah. And of course, there's other things you can do very practical. Stay healthy, keep your energy levels up, do meditation, eat pure and nourishing food, because that gives you a sharpness of mind, increased energy. So, You know, when we're healthy, when we have more well-being, when we have more chi, more light, there's less worry anyway. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. So I guess we've covered the 50 minutes now, so that brings us to the end of episode 4. So thank you so much for your questions. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you again, and I'll see you hopefully for some more meditation next week. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.